Previously on the Elevate With Us podcast, I'm so excited to welcome Sam Gorniak to the podcast today.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I was born in the late 70s, so I grew up, most of my youth was on the south side of Chicago. There's this dude, and he's got a white uniform on. He's got a Navy uniform on, but at that time, I think he's a cop. I've been negotiating with the detailers to go to SEAL training, and they find out I have a bilateral hernia. I liked the meaning behind the word metal, and the meaning really is, like overcoming, working through. And that really summarizes getting a mortgage.
Or who you'd want to work with when you're getting a mortgage, because not that it's hard, but it isn't easy. Right? There's a lot of steps. There's a lot of regulations involved when getting a mortgage.
Yeah.
And I know that when I was selling real estate, it was very important to have a very close and trusting relationship with your loan officer, your mortgage professional, because the deal kind of rides on them, right? They could really mess it up. They could really prevent it from being a joyful experience and make everybody mad. And, having worked with you, I know that that's not how it works with you. You're detail-oriented with it. You really care. You might care a little bit too much, which sounds crazy. You're always ready and willing to educate the consumer as to why you're asking for things, as opposed to, I need X, Y, and Z. Just give it to me and shut up and don't ask any questions. You're like, hey, do you know about this process? This is why I'm going to ask for this, and this is why I need it in this time frame, which I think allows people to want to work with you because they understand the purpose of it. You're not just like, hey, I'm the man with the money, because if you don't listen to what I say, you're not going to get a mortgage. You're not going to get your house. These are the steps, and this is why. I think it's really great.
Yeah, what's interesting is, yes, the buck really does stop with the lender, okay? So the lender, if the lender doesn't really understand what they're doing, right, they can kill your deal really quickly, okay? And see, what the other thing, though, is there's companies out there now. There's new lenders. There's new mortgage lenders out there who they're starting to help the loan officer more. They want the money, right? So they're starting to help with the process more. Back in the day, when you were a loan officer, you really needed to know all your stuff. It all had to be here. You had to know how to work through the problems and all that. But now the lenders that are giving the money are better. So now they're teaching the loan officers, which is good, right? But in reality, that whole process, from the day we take a loan, day one, okay, till the day we fund the loan, there's so many problems that can arise because of your past financial situation.
Oh, because people don't like to disclose everything.
Sure.
Right? They
Please don't lie to your loan officer. Just tell them everything.
Just tell them everything. They're not going to tell on you. They're not whatever. And you don't have to tell the realtor, but please be truthful with the loan officer, because it really stinks if they do a credit pull and it doesn't pull up that 4 years ago or 2 years ago, and I don't really know the norm, that you defaulted on your home, you have a foreclosure, you have a bankruptcy. There are certain ways to work through it, but it'd be a lot nicer and easier to know from the beginning. They're not going to judge you.
Yeah,
They're not going to judge people
Let's talk about that
that
confidentiality.
Sure.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So when somebody calls me, and hopefully every loan officer in the country, by the way, I'm a mortgage broker. There's a difference. We're not going to get into that right now, but when you call, right, the more you tell us, when you speak, if the loan officer knows what they're doing, we're thinking, okay, this rule applies. This rule applies. This is the rule. Let me ask you a question. So if you were to say, hey, I just hypothetically, hey, my son was in a car accident and my credit's low right now because I have high medical debt. Okay? Based on just those few words that the borrower says, I'm thinking this rule, this rule, this rule, this law let me ask you some questions.
Right. So you qualify them, and it leads to more qualifying questions. It leads to more qualifying questions.
Yeah. The other thing too is I'm trying to figure out, like, do I really have to disclose that? Is there a way to get around some of that? Right. Because
Is it relevant?
Is it relevant? Right. Because your interpretation of it may not be the federal government's interpretation of it. Right. So my advice for somebody looking to get a mortgage is when you call your loan officer or the mortgage broker, be upfront, be honest, and then we can navigate the waters.
Right. I would say, like, the most important things that people need to tell their loan officer is whether they're a W-2 or a 1099.
Yes.
Right. If they're a W-2, they get commission, or if they're a W-2 and they get bonuses.
Yes.
Right. Because they like to just automatically assume because they got one bonus of $150,000 that's like boosted their income, but that's not the rule.
Those are usually 2-year rules, by the way. I'll get into that. So she just said a bunch of stuff. I'm immediately thinking 2 years, 2 years.
Yeah. So just remember, it's all important when it deals with money, or if you had a job change and you got more money or less money, because you're going to be looking at about 2 years of tax returns, correct?
Yes, 2 years tax returns.
To determine, an average or whatever.
Yeah, you're getting good.
Doing this a while with you. And the other questions they're going to ask you is like alimony and child support.
Yes.
Right. Those are important.
2 years. 2 years remaining.
What else are things people forget to tell you?
Let me talk about that.
Okay.
If we're going to count alimony or child support, you got to have 2 years remaining on it.
Right.
So if you have a child who's 17 and you're getting child support for that child and he's 17, we're not going to count that child support because you're going to lose it. Okay. That's why we got to have this talk.
Yeah. So the bottom line is just be truthful and honest about it, because it might not be as bad as you think. Another probably misconception that you hear, and I think realtors hear as well, is that they need 20% down.
Yes.
On a mortgage. And if they don't, it's so bad. They have to pay private mortgage insurance.
Is it?
And it generally isn't as bad as people think.
Yeah.
And, you're able to do the calculation that says, hey, if you put 20% down, you're going to use this much cash. But if you pay the private mortgage insurance, you're going to use this much cash. It's going to cost you this much for so many years.
Yeah.
And it's less.
Less.
It can often, and I don't think many loan officers spend the time, or mortgage brokers spend the time to work out that math, because they'd rather just say, hey, put the 20% down, or hey, don't.
They probably don't analyze it, really. They probably don't think about it. So what's interesting is when I work with you or we work together, Tanya brought some things up about me. I'm extremely competitive, okay? I'm always figuring out, how do we win? How do we win for the customer? So when we talk, I put myself in your shoes and I say, hey, based on all of this stuff you got going on, I think we could go A, or we could go B, or I don't really love it, but maybe we could go C. What are your thoughts?
So A, B, and C are different loan programs or different loan options, which people don't realize that there's not just one way to do a loan.
No.
I mean, there's many different ways. There's many different options. And I think that people just assume that it's 20% down or nothing.
Well, the other thing, too, is the loan officer may be incentivized to send you down one loan program.
Right. They get paid more?
I can't say that because I don't know. Like, every institution's different, and the comp plans are all different, and I don't know all of that. But I do know that I'm always going to give the customer options and do what's right for the customer, regardless of how much money I make or I don't make. And sometimes that's me telling the customer, I'm not the best option for you, which I just literally did the other day.
Yeah, I know. No, and I think that's important. It's, when you put the customer first, the outcome's always better, because even if that person ends up getting a loan with somebody else, they'll probably never forget that you said, hey, I'm not the best option for you. Yeah. Because, I mean, you're not making it about you. You're making it about them, which is really important and hard.
What's interesting? It's, I'm at a place, I guess, in my life where I want to treat people the way that I expect them to treat me. Number one, I don't need to make a few extra bucks off somebody and send them down the wrong road.
Sure. You want to make sure they're set up for success for a
Yeah.
while.
I want them to be a customer for life too.
Sure.
Right? So I look at the long game. The long game is, let me treat you right. Let me take care of you like you're my family. And then you'll tell your friends and your family, and then we'll just keep on.
Can I plug you again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this acceptable?
Sure, whatever.
So something you might not know about Sam is that he's a 𝗣𝗡𝗎 coach.
Well, I'm a 𝗣𝗡𝗎𝗍 facilitator.
Whatever that is. Same. To me, it's the same difference. And if you don't know who Brian 𝗣𝗡𝗎 is, really, really amazing real estate coach. And you can, mortgage and loan officers can use him as well. And the premise is to work by referral. And working by referral generally leads to better success. And that's what you just talked about is if you treat people right, the cycle will keep going because they'll refer you to other people. So
that's right. And, and the other day we were driving in the car, and a guy by the name of Sam, I'm Sam, and this guy's name's Sam, he called me, and Sam, we it just wasn't a right time 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, for Sam to get a mortgage. And he called me, he said, hey dude, what's funny is he actually found Tanya, called Tanya, and then he called me and said, hey dude, I don't know if you remember me, but...
And we remembered everything about him. It was so crazy. So he was looking to buy in the Keys.
He was looking to buy in the Keys.
And we could not believe how expensive flood insurance is in the Keys.
Super expensive.
And that's what killed him.
It was like $1,000. It was like a G a month. I can't even remember.
I mean, it was ridiculous. And do you remember the house needed so much work? And it was like on stilts.
It was like $800K on stilts, needed like $1,000 a month in flood insurance. It was like
nuts.
He just couldn't qualify at that time. And I had helped him in so many different scenarios. And the other thing too is, I did a lot of like budgeting conversations with them, like people in sales, a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people, they just want to sell something, right? And I'm like, listen, dude, this your payment's going to be this, man. Can you really afford it? Or you got a baby coming?
Yep.
Is it going to be okay? Yeah, I could have just been like, okay, dude, just sign here and we'll get you the mortgage. And
because he basically did qualify, but it just felt like it was such a stretch.
It was a stretch.
It was just such a stretch. And then I think, if I remember correctly, he wasn't really sure if he wanted to be in the Keys. Exactly.
Yeah, and the
he
Keys
was
is taking a beating with hurricanes and stuff too. You know?
But man, we learned a lot from that guy.
So I thought it was extremely. We thought it was extremely awesome that we treated the guy right, and we advised him the best we could, just like if he was our family. And then he came back, and I'm actually right now working on a loan for him.
It's so cool.
3 years later,
right?
I think a lot of people would have just tried to get him then.
Well, and I think it's a big failure probably with realtors and mortgage officers. It's all the same as that. And I say this to the agents all the time, that customers are seeds and they grow at different speeds, right?
Oh, seeds and speeds.
It rhymed. It was pretty great. It's pretty great. The seeds. And so you got to think of your customers as like a garden and an orchard, right? Gardens tend to grow faster than orchards, but you got to have both.
Yeah.
Because that was a 3-year grower, right? And sometimes you have 3-month growers. But if you have lots of people growing at different speeds, it'll always bear fruit.
Oh, Brian Buffini's big on that too.
You like that, right?
Yeah,
it'll always bear fruit because they're growing at different rates. So you will always be fed if you are nurturing all the people all the time, because they'll feed you in different ways.
I see.
Yeah, and that's what you learned. Look at this, I just taught you.
Of course you did. I always teach me some. But okay, I think we answered that question.
So, what bothers you? This is gonna be awkward, maybe.
No, I think.
What irritates you, bothers you, or infuriates? I can't say that word. Why did I?
Infuriates.
That one. The most about realtors. Like, what do we do that's super annoying that you want to let all other realtors to know, whether they work with you or not? Because it probably pisses off the loan officer they work with too. So what do we do that you would like us to change? Pick one thing. Or two. Or three. Can I guess?
Yeah, you can guess, because I'm not sure I know right now.
I would imagine it's like asking for updates when you just don't have one because you're waiting on somebody. Because what I learned when I went to UWM with you was that, which is United Wholesale Mortgage in Pontiac, Michigan. Am I remembering this right?
Yeah.
Is that I learned that when us as realtors are waiting on the mortgage professional, you're often waiting for somebody too. And that it's not necessarily that you didn't do what you're supposed to do on time. It's that there is such a huge chain of command.
Yeah.
There are so many decision makers. So like if this condition has to get approved, you put it in, and then it feels like 5 different people have to look at this condition before it's approved. and you're waiting like we're waiting. So,
yeah.
And we want things immediately.
Yeah.
Like we're not patient,
right?
Most realtors, because our business is pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that's annoying because I'm pretty sure I've annoyed you with that request before.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily one of my frustrations. I think one of my biggest frustrations is when a realtor, let's say a realtor is using a lender, just they have a lender friend, and over the years they're learning a little bit here and there, right? And then for some reason I help with the loan, whatever reason is, maybe the customer brings me, or it was a referral or whatever, and then the realtor's calling me, asking me questions, telling me things that should be important that really aren't important. Like they're pretending to have this mortgage knowledge.
Sure.
That's not really like a valid knowledge.
Sure.
Right. It's like if I were like a football coach, right? But I never played football before.
Sure.
And I'm trying to tell the quarterback how to throw the ball.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think I know a lot about mortgages, but I know I don't. But I think I do, because we deal with them a lot, and the customer expects us to know a lot. I mean, when we're out on showings, or when I used to show a lot of property, they'd be like, "Hey, what do you think my mortgage is on this house?"
Yeah.
So the customer expects us to know those things, and that becomes really hard because I like to say stay in your lane, and my lane is not mortgages, but I like to say I'm partnered with some great mortgage professionals that can help you answer that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I looked up the rate right now, let's just make it up. Let's just say it's 10% because that's an even number. If the rate's 10%,
sounds like my commercial building rate.
I know it does.
Keep going.
So if it's 10%, it doesn't mean it's 10% for me or you. My rate could be 14% because my interest rates. I mean, my credit sucks because I'm more risky, or
could be
maybe because I'm a 1099 and I write off all my stuff. So I want to do like a no doc loan. I know my interest rate's going to be higher. So that is probably a really frustrating thing for you, is that we make assumptions on things and probably give customers bad information.
Yeah, I think my biggest advice for real estate agents when you're dealing with a lender is just call and be you. Just call and be cool. Don't just be cool, right? Call and say, "Hey, dude, you've had the loan for this long. Where are we at today with it?" Okay, let them talk. Hey, is there anything that could screw the deal? What could kill this thing? Right? Let them talk. Then ask questions, because every deal is different. Just because you're approved with conditions doesn't mean the loan can't fall apart. Okay, just because you got a 1 day, like there's this big thing you see on the internet right now. Oh, I got a 1 day approval. Who cares about your 1 day approval?
Because there's conditions on it.
Yeah, there's conditions on it.
Right. Which conditions are things that might prevent the loan from closing. If people don't know, it's like they put all the information in and there's like a question.
There's a question.
There's a question. They want to clear it.
Yeah, like think about this, okay? This is a real quick hypo, okay? You talk to the loan officer. The loan officer says, "Hey, man, we're good. We're 1 day conditions. Everything's awesome. Everything's good," right? Well, maybe that loan officer doesn't understand how taxes are going to increase, okay?
Oh, right, because when it sells in Florida, it gets reassessed.
It gets reassessed, right? So then you're 20 days in, and the title company says, "Hey, those taxes aren't going to be $400 a month. They're going to be $750 a month." And now the borrower can't afford $750 a month, so your deal just died.
Right. The debt to income is all messed up because the debt increased.
Yeah, but you're like, "Oh my God, I had a 1 day conditional approval." So my advice to the realtor is just call and be cool. "Hey, Sam, how's this loan going? Can anything kill it? What can I do to help you? Do you have everything from the borrower?"
Sure.
Just be cool.
If a realtor was going to call you and they said like they have the best borrower ever, what does that look like? What is like what does an A+ borrower look like?
It reminds me.
I know one of them. It means they're a W-2 employee.
Well, you know what? That reminds me of my whopping 1 year of law school that I did. Okay, the first week of law school, you learn there are no slam dunk cases. Okay,
right.
There are no slam dunk cases, so there are no slam dunk borrowers hypothetically.
No, but like in theory, if you had to come up with the best scenario, what does it look like? I'm imagining they're W-2 employees.
No debt. A very limited debt, and you have either the income or the revenue. I mean, those are the things that.
No, it's just debt and money. Debt. What is it? Debt to income ratio is great.
Yeah, your DTI.
And what does it have to be to qualify? Your debt to income
Well, that's a subjective question, but
Sorry.
it's a subjective based on different loan programs and rules. But right away, if I'm going to do a conversation with you really quickly, I want you to tell me it's under 50% right away.
Under 50%. So
and
then,
that includes the new mortgage, by the way.
So when people if someone wanted to do some quick math because they are embarrassed and they don't want to reach out to a loan officer, but they're thinking of buying a home, let's just say it's a married couple.
Yeah.
And let's just say they bring in $10,000 a month. Because together. That's what it's based on, right?
Yeah.
It's the gross.
The gross,
not
yes.
the net.
Gross.
The gross income. Because I think that comes up a lot is they're like telling you what it is after taxes.
Common, yeah.
And you don't need that. So we're just going to use even numbers. So it's a married couple. They bring in $10,000 a month. And they have $1,500 a month in car loans. So now they're at $8,500, right? Or am I doing this wrong?
Yeah, so they bring $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, half of that, we're just going to use the half. Half of that is $5,000.
Okay, so they have $5,000 available for debt.
Hypothetically.
Okay,
just quick numbers. $5,000 they have $5,000 available per month for eligible debt. Now you just whacked $1,500. So now we're at $3,500. So if they have no other debt, they can get a mortgage for about $3,500.
Okay.
That's subject to AUS approvals. That's subject to approvals.
No,
it's
I
subject
know.
to loan program. Just quick numbers.
If someone, what I was trying to do is if someone's thinking about buying a home,
yes,
or upgrading a home or whatever they're thinking of doing,
yes,
and they're wondering what they qualify for,
yes,
and they don't want to bother anyone, that's some quick math.
Cut your monthly revenue in half.
But it's the gross, not net, and whatever revolving debt you have is what you subtract out. Next question.
Yes.
What does credit card payments look like in it? You use the minimum, correct?
Yeah, we use the minimum.
Not the whole debt. So if you have $50,000 in debt, but your minimum for all of it's $700, you're going to minus out $700.
Yes.
Okay. How do student loans play into it?
It's interesting.
Too much? I just opened up Pandora's box.
It's a little complicated because a lot of people are they're in deferment and they think deferment counts, but deferment really doesn't count. But that's like a whole that's a whole analysis I've got to do.
On
Call me.
Metal Mortgage 2, when we bring Metal Mortgage in again, when you come in for your next podcast, we'll talk all about student debt because I'm sure that'll be really, really exhilarating.
Let's really quick before we go. If you have student debt and you're delinquent and you're thinking about getting a mortgage, figure out how to make an arrangement so you're not delinquent with your student debt. Not in deferment, delinquent, like you haven't been paying any money.
Well, so that's a good thing to bring up because I would assume if I was delinquent on any payment, student debt or not, that I couldn't get a mortgage. So what you're saying is if I don't have student debt, but let's pretend I did and I hadn't paid it for a year,
yes,
that I can make an arrangement with my student debt collector.
The delinquencies may get you too on AUS approval.
You should probably tell people what that stands for.
That's a whole nother...
No, ASU. No one knows. Or whatever, AUS, whatever you just said. Arizona State University. That's wrong. Whatever you said, I have no idea what it was. Nobody knows what that is but you.
It's basically our automated underwriting service, okay? It's how we quickly run you through underwriting to basically say, hey, we think they're good or we're not.
It's like an algorithm.
Yeah, well, it's a lot more complicated than that. But we use Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines to basically run you through a quick underwriting process. The other thing is a lot of mortgage brokers will say, well, it's not really quick, Sam, because whatever AUS says is all you have to turn in. Like if AWS comes back, if that report comes back and says, hey, I need 7 things, okay, then some mortgage people will say, well, just turn in those 7 things and then you'll be good. You'll get the approval, okay?
So when people say they get the one-day approval, is that because they run it through the A-letter thing and it came through? No, okay. It has to go through something else.
It goes through underwriting.
Which is a person.
It's a person. It's a company, yeah. Not like the company provides an underwriting service of some magnitude.
So when you provide someone a pre-approval letter,
yes,
you put them through that automated thing that you just said.
It's through AUS.
Got it. That's interesting. Okay.
Some companies may actually put them all the way through. Okay, some companies may do like what we call a TBD, to be determined. Like they'll actually put the borrower through the actual underwriting process. I've done that before. I did it for a guy coming out of a bankruptcy. So I had a guy come out of he was 1 year out of a bankruptcy, and I actually went to a banking institution and said, "Hey, I'm a little concerned about this dude, and I don't want him to go under contract. Will you actually review this file for me?" And sometimes they'll do it, and if they're too busy, they won't. But
the big question is did he get a loan?
He did get a loan. He got a loan like 1 year and 3 days out of a bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Right. We actually had him. What was interesting is since we put him through the process with underwriting TBD, they actually came through and said, "Hey, the day he hits this date, the federal guideline, the next day we'll approve him."
That's so cool. That's really neat.
Yeah. So we actually went under contract like 27 days before that date, that bankruptcy date.
So what it tells me is it's important who you work with. It's important that the loan professional you're working with knows different programs, knows different systems. They've gone through a lot of different scenarios, because I would imagine if you know anyone that's filed for bankruptcy, they probably think they can't buy a home for 7 years. I'm pretty sure the Google tells you that.
Maybe.
When we started off and you said, you can look things up on Google and doesn't tell you right information, there's a lot of stuff on there about if you file for bankruptcy that you can't buy a home for a long, long time. So that's really, really neat. We definitely have to bring you back on. We have a lot more things to talk about. I think it was really cool to learn about your background. I think people really enjoy, your Chicagoland experience.
Yeah, sorry it took a little long there.
It's awesome. I think it's great. I think it's really important for people to know who you are. I mean, why not? If they're going to work with you, then I think it's important they know where you came from, and who doesn't love a military person or a Navy guy. You did a lot of cool things. I think one day we'll have to come you and just talk about submarine stories, because they're pretty rock star. They're pretty fun.
They're interesting.
They are really, really fun. I think everybody enjoys them because you're like in an underwater capsule. And anyone that can be underwater. Well, wait. One last question.
Well, remember.
What was the longest you were underwater at one time before surfacing? Is that the right word? We stumped you.
Interesting. I don't remember. I think like 100 days probably or more. Underwater without pulling in, right? Like coming up.
Yes.
Like surfacing the boat.
Yes.
Yeah, over 100 days. I don't remember exactly how many.
So I just want you to know, just think about that. If you were underwater for 100 days, what does that say about you? You probably got something called patience. You're with the same group of humans for 100 days in a row.
180 of them about.
I can hardly be in the same room for somebody with 100 minutes. And you're in the same room for a lot of people for 100 days. Round the clock. You're eating with them, sleeping with them, showering, all you like. There's no like refresh of the people.
Hey, listen, I know you hear a lot of stories, but submarine guys, we don't shower together.
No, I just meant like you're in the same area. I didn't mean it like that, but like everything you do, you're together, right?
Yeah.
You can't really get away.
The whole two guys go down, one couple comes up. Yeah,
I never heard of that.
Never heard of that?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
What I was trying to say, not that, was that you're just together all the time.
Yeah, we are together a lot.
That's a lot.
It was interesting, It was so cool though to see these young guys who didn't really have anything going on in their lives, and then they come and the next thing they're driving a nuclear powered warship submarine,
right?
And we're going to track Chinese submarines or something amazing, something that you can only read about in books. I mean, it was crazy.
Well, number one, we appreciate your service. Thanks for everything you did, and thanks for coming on, and we look forward to next time.
Thank you.
Jim.